Today's lesson is about trig functions on the unit circle. We have been working on memorizing the unit circle, but the point of this lesson is kind of twofold. One is how to use the unit circle to answer questions, but also how you can answer the same questions without needing to memorize the unit circle. So kind of two ways to kind of fill your toolbox on evaluating trig functions. So we're first going to talk about the four quadrantal angles, and these are just these points that we've already talked about on the unit circle. So the idea is 0 degrees or 0 radians or 360 degrees or 2 pi radians, 90 degrees and pi over 2, 180 degrees or pi, 270 degrees, 3 pi over 2. And then these are the points. So this point is the point 1, 0, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, and 0, negative 1. And then we need to remember from a previous lesson is that cosine of theta is your x over r, sine of theta, y over r, tan theta, y over x. So here are 4 examples where we are evaluating trig functions at those points. So the first one is just sine of negative 180 degrees, negative 180 degrees. So this point and sine is the y value, so this is 0. Okay, and then tan of 3 pi over 2. So 3 pi over 2, I have my y is negative 1 over my x is 0. We can't divide by 0, so that is undefined. Okay, next one, secant of 4 pi. So 4 pi is the same as going around the circle twice. So it's at the 2 pi basically, so 1, 0. Secant is 1 over cosine. Cosine is going to be your x, so 1 over 1, which is 1. And then the last one is cosecant of 90 degrees. So 90 degrees, I've got the point 0, 1. Cosecant is 1 over sine. Sine of 90, that's the y value at 90 degrees is 1, so 1 over 1 is 1. So most students find these ones pretty easy, and they are able to spit out the answers to these real quick. All right, the next part of the lesson is about reference angles. Now, this first part you don't need to write down. The idea of a reference angle is thinking of angles and referring them back to these quadrant 1 angles. So quadrant 1, so the idea is these acute angles. This is the 45 degrees, and how they refer back to those special right triangles. So if we have an angle measure that is in quadrant 3, the terminal side is in quadrant 3, the idea is, okay, if we draw always to the x-axis, what is this angle right here, this reference angle that is always referring back to those special right triangles? If we have one in quadrant 4, drawing to the x-axis, finding those right triangles. So if we start with this angle measure theta, what we want is just a reference angle, which we're going to call theta prime. There are rules on how to find the reference angles depending on which quadrant you're in. So here are the rules. So starting with quadrant 2, if we have an angle here, so here is angle theta, I want to look at, here would be my reference angle theta prime, because that's where I can create that right triangle. So if you're in quadrant 2, you are going to find that theta prime. You will do 180 minus theta, or pi minus theta. In quadrant 3, so if I have this angle right here, if that's theta, drawing this right triangle to the x-axis, here's my reference angle, theta prime. So to find theta prime, I will do theta minus 180, or theta minus pi. And then if I have an angle in quadrant 4, here I have theta, and then if I'm going to draw this right triangle, this would be my reference angle, theta prime, and to find that, what we will do is 360 minus theta, or 2 pi minus theta. And the idea of these reference angles, it's going to help us evaluate everything on that unit circle without having to memorize the unit circle. So it just is kind of filling our toolbox. Some people will just memorize that unit circle and be really good at using it, and then some people can just be really good at finding reference angles to help them evaluate the trig functions. So now we're just going to do some examples on how to find reference angles. And the first example is 300 degrees. So if you draw 300 degrees, that's going to be in quadrant 4. So in quadrant 4, what is the rule for finding the reference angle, theta prime? So if you're in quadrant 4 and we have degrees, we'll just do 360 minus 300. So our reference angle is 60 degrees. Our next example, let's do a radian, negative 2 pi over 3. And first, I'm going to find a coterminal angle, which means I will add 2 pi so I can get it positive. And that is 4 pi over 3. Now, 4 pi over 3 is in quadrant 3. So then this reference angle will be here. And if we're in quadrant 3, we're going to follow this rule where we take, I'm using the coterminal angle theta minus pi. So 4 pi over 3 minus pi is equal to pi over 3. So that would be my reference angle. Okay, and so now negative, let's do another degree, 240 degrees. Let's find a coterminal angle, so it's positive. Let's add 360. So that equals 120 degrees. Let's graph that. 120 degrees would be here. So this would be the reference angle. I'm in quadrant 2, and in quadrant 2, you do 180 minus theta, so 60 degrees again. Okay, last example, let's do 5 pi over 4. So to graph that, that will be in quadrant 3. So quadrant 3, here's my reference angle, and in quadrant 3 is where we do theta minus pi. So theta is 5 pi over 4, and we're going to subtract pi. So this will be pi over 4. So that will be my reference angle. At this point, we've really only covered half of the lesson, but I'm going to cut this video short here. And then we're going to practice this information and then use this information to fully evaluate the trig functions in the next video. Good luck.